Hey guys, welcome back to MNA. Look at that, for the first time I've actually gotten this one out early, and I got a new intro and everything. So a slight switch up in the rules for this series. The order of these videos will be from newest to oldest comments, and I will always try to prioritize people who haven't been in any MNA episodes over recurring viewers. These episodes will be coming out each month, so if I start to get overwhelmed, there's a good chance I could miss a few films in the near future. In fact, while making this I almost did, but everything got through. If you don't know how MNA works, these comments were taken from episode 5 of MNA, so if you want me to cover a movie, it'll be in episode 7 if you comment. Make sure to comment whatever you want. As long as I haven't talked about it in this series already, I'll cover it. Let's get into M&A episode 6. Alright, Ashes6152 gave me The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride is a pretty iconic film that I still somehow haven't seen, so this was my first time viewing it. If you don't know, The Princess Bride is a book adaptation following the titular Princess Bride and the constant revenge and battles that surround her. I think the movie does a very good job adapting the book. Although I haven't read it or know anything about it, I assume they kept everything the same. They tell the story through a grandfather reading it to his sick grandson, and as the movie goes on, we get intercuts back to reality. This angle lets us have narration that adds to the story and lets the movie be as nonsensical as it wants. I don't think these real life moments add a ton to the movie, but they serve their purpose pretty well. They don't really play a part in the actual story, so I'm not going to talk about them for the rest of the segment. I just thought I would mention it. Anyways, the movie mostly starts when the princess is captured by these 3 bandits. This is my favorite stretch of the movie. It's really good. So the whole gimmick of this stretch is that a mysterious masked man is chasing after the 3 bandits for the princess, and one bandit after another is defeated by this masked man. It starts off when the smart guy wants the sword guy to kill the masked man when he climbs up the rope. This establishes a really strong relationship between the sword guy and the masked man. They both help each other out so they can have a proper duel. It's really silly, and the battle itself is also very fun. The sound design is really effective. Plus, we can easily tell who's winning because of the gag around who's left-handed. This fight is really good. The other 2 fights aren't as good, but they're still solid. The giant fight continues the trend of the 2 fighters kind of being chill and friendly and just doing it because they have to. The battle itself isn't anywhere near as cool or long as the sword battle. Lastly, the smart guy and his little mind game is cool. I like these 3 bandits, and I really like the progression of this masked man slowly defeating all 3 in different ways, though the giant fight was a little underwhelming. Anyways, after this, the princess is returned back to the big bad prince of this movie, and this is where stuff slows down a lot. Weasley and the princess are the only 2 characters that I really care about, but this film introduces a lot of new characters that are all kinda lame, especially the villain. I think he kinda sucks. He's just meant to be pathetic, but I really don't find him hateable or threatening. Anyways, eventually the sword guy and giant end up coming back to help Weasley, which is great because I like these 2 characters, especially the sword guy. Smart guy is just dead though. That's kind of messed up, right? He didn't deserve to die. Anyways, the climax is pretty fun. Everyone has a strong bond, so they work together really well, which is nice, and the plan to take down the prince is pretty cool. Plus, during this climax, we have the best scene in the movie, which is the sword guy versus the 6-fingered man. Sorry for calling him sword guy, by the way, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyways, this fight is really good. This feels like a strong final arc, and it's kind of a hype moment. The last stretch of this movie is quite good, and the ending is also pretty sweet. For me, nothing here really blew me away. I like sword guy and Weasley a lot, but no one else felt super fleshed out. They're just kind of cool. This is a very good film, but it has a lot of hiccups, and I really didn't care about everything. So I'm gonna give The Princess Bride a high 7 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, Surfstorm4 gave me Sorry to Bother You. Sorry to Bother You follows Cassius Green, a telemarketer who slowly makes his way up the ranks as the world around him gets more bizarre. First off, I gotta talk about how great Cassius Green is as a character. He starts off this movie as a guy just desperate for a job and status, and as the film goes on, he slowly climbs the ranks of the telemarketing world, making his way up to the top. We focus a lot on how immoral Cassius considers being a telemarketer to be, basically selling slave labor to people for money. What I found so interesting is how this movie handles Cassius slowly turning further and further away from his morals for more money, or the lack of it. Cassius does become immoral and starts to ignore the bad things he's doing, but throughout it all, he's still likable. They take this super interesting approach by having Cash at the center of all this madness, while still making him a good person. He decides not to protest so he can get a promotion, but he still swears he'll support the strikers on the sidelines. It's still a selfish act, obviously, but he's not pushing them away like most movies with this message. He still has a heart. Cash does start to succumb to a darker lifestyle as the movie goes on, but once he hits the very top and figures out the dark truth around the company, he quickly snaps and runs back down the ladder to the bottom. Despite his immoral acts, Cash still remains a super likable, great character, and it's all brought to life from how amazing his actor is. Lakeith Stanfield does such an amazing job with this role. At first, I just really liked his super nasally, monotone voice, but as the movie goes on, Stanfield displays so many complex emotions. During the riot scene, Cash is riding with everyone, but you can tell he still doesn't want to do it. Cash starts off awkwardly getting into it, but quickly starts convincing himself to get into the riot, blending in. This is done just the way Lakeith says 3 words. It's so good. This movie is also very funny. There's not much to say about it. It's a funny film. The comedy of Sorry to Bother You mostly comes from the most talked aspect about this film, the weird tone. Yeah, I'd rather not spoil anything just so everyone can watch this, but it sure was weird. It's mostly satire of the real world, so everyone is just super over-exaggerated. If I had to give an example, the power callers or the telemarketers that get a promotion live on the second floor, which is presented with a golden elevator and a 1,000-word passcode. Obviously, we take the metaphor of the wealthy being so high and above us and then pushing it to its extreme. A lot of this movie is like that. I do think as the film goes on, the weird tone never escalates, so during around the halfway mark, it really started wearing off on me. For like half an hour, none of it was really working and started feeling repetitive. However, the movie's climax is insane and pushes the weird tone to its natural extreme, and all that stuff is awesome. Some really disturbing but also hilarious stuff. This is a great movie. It does get weaker as it goes on, but it really brought it back by its ending. And so I'm going to give Sorry to Bother You a high 8 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, Very Sad Dinosaur gave me the Kikaider reboot. Obviously, I'm missing a lot on this one. I know nothing about the original show or this property in general, so it'll be a little difficult to get into a lot of detail. Generally, in this series, I want to try to be more positive than negative, so unless people give me a movie that is actually unredeemable, I'll lay out my issues, but try to focus on the positives. From what I know about this reboot, it seems to take a much more serious stance on Kikaider. I assume this is true because the entire movie is very serious with next to no jokes. I think the design for Jiro is kinda cool, even though it's probably just taken from the original. I do like how the blue and red in his design easily conveys his two sides. It's pretty easy to get. I also kinda like how they explain how he looks like a human. The visuals for it are pretty cool. Lastly, for the most part, this movie has pretty good choreography. Okay, so like, I don't think this is for me very much. There are like a billion technical issues that I won't mention. A lot of this I already forgot when writing. I just don't think this movie has characters that are very interesting, and any character development we do get is handled pretty poorly. It is hammered in constantly that Jiro is a robot with a consciousness. It is hammered in so much to the point that every single villain repeats it multiple times, along with all the main characters. Despite the insistence, I still don't see his humanity. It feels less like he's an actual person, and more just that his programming makes him not want to kill people. The sister and brother also have arcs, but they kinda just skip the important steps to get there, plus the brother is just completely gone by the end. I think it has some good elements, but for the most part, hey, I really couldn't get into this at all, and certain elements really made me want it to end. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna give the Kikaider reboot a solid 3 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, Dietem gave me Godzilla vs. Biollante. This is the second movie in the Heisei era for Godzilla, so a lot of this movie treats Godzilla showing up like a big return, since this is only the second time they've showed up in universe. This movie is mostly on Godzilla's cells and the scientists who discover it, believing that if Godzilla were to ever return, they could turn his cells into a weapon. One of the scientists goes rogue, and in an attempt to resurrect his daughter, he creates a giant flower monster named biollante. So for a bit of this movie, we have the Americans who are trying to capture the Godzilla cells for themselves, since it would be a super weapon against nuclear technology. And these guys are really funny. They virtually do nothing the entire film and are all just bumbling idiots. The English dubs for them are really bad and hard to understand, but it's alright. To me, they're kind of comedic relief for this film, so it works. Godzilla himself in this is pretty good too. I do like the ominous buildup of his return, and for a good half of this movie, he's never on screen. I do wish that when he actually showed up, it was a bigger deal. The volcano shot is cool, but they kind of just see him on screen beforehand, so Godzilla's reveal loses a lot of its impact. The actual scenes of Godzilla destroying the city are quite strong. The miniature sets look really good here. My favorite part of this film though was probably Biollante. This is a really cool idea for a monster. Having a monster that's half Rose, half Godzilla while also having some level of humanity. The design for it is also great. Their first fight with Godzilla looks really good and is probably the best scene in the film. Afterwards, they kind of just disappear forever until the last 5 minutes when they come back as Roseless Biollante. Godzilla just kind of sweeps the floor with them again, which is disappointing, but their self-sacrifice was a nice touch. Anyways, this movie definitely has a lot of good moments, but as per usual, the human stuff still kind of sucks. I think the scientist guy and his story of trying to resurrect his daughter is interesting, but after that, he pretty much gets fully sidelined, and we get to watch the government do government things and shoot stuff at Godzilla, which we've seen a billion times. Besides the one scene of Godzilla somehow becoming super quiet just to kill this one random guy, there isn't anything entertaining here. Yeah, this is alright. I'm gonna give Godzilla vs. Biollante a solid 6 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, JB Brown 8079 gave me Mickey 17. Wow, I get to rewatch this again. I already did a full review on Mickey 17 when it came out earlier this year, and I frankly don't remember anything I said in that video. After rewatching Mickey 17, I really didn't get anything new out of it, but I'll just give my general points that I might have already said in my original review. Okay, so Robert Pattinson gives a really good performance here. I don't care what anyone says. His voice for Mickey 17 is definitely strange and goofy, but it feels like a super unique take on the goofy little guy that is Mickey 17. Robert Pattinson is also equally great as Mickey Mickey 18. He really sells that this guy is a completely insane lunatic. In general, it's also super easy to tell which Mickey is who just based on how Robert Pattinson plays them. Just his face communicates who is who, and that's seriously impressive. Kenneth Marshall is still a pretty good villain. You can't convince me he isn't a Trump metaphor. He's doing the voice, his followers have red hats, it's like right there. Besides the metaphor, he isn't much, but I still think having such a gleefully evil villain is pretty fun. I think I already talked about the aliens in my original review, but I still don't care for the creepers all that much. For such a creative movie, the aliens really aren't anything special. The scenes of the humans murdering baby creepers is still pretty brutal, but the aliens themselves are pretty lame and have no interesting abilities. In general, besides the cloning idea, this movie doesn't explore its world all too much. The random drugs are never explained, and Earth in the future is just never touched on. Plus, the creepers, as I just said. I've said this all before, so I guess I'll touch on one thing I don't think I mentioned in my original review. This movie is really similar to Chainsaw Man, especially its opening. Mickey is treated as a tool and is literally gaslit by a woman. She unfortunately never shows up again, but that dynamic is pretty much Denjin Makima. It would be cool if this opening was explored more, but it's alright I guess. I'm mostly just rambling here. I didn't get a ton out of rewatching this. My opinion remains the same. This is still a good movie. I'm giving Mickey 17 a solid 7 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, Tasuki Araka gave me I Stand Alone. I Stand Alone follows this freaky little French guy as he slowly falls into his own delusions while trying to survive in Paris. This is actually my first movie from Gaster No. I mostly know him because he made Climax, which I still actually haven't seen. The best part of I Stand Alone is definitely our lead, named the Butcher. He starts off I Stand Alone still trying to get off his feet after his time in jail. As the movie goes on, however, we get to see how messed up he is. He starts committing more and more heinous acts in order to get his way. This entire film is from his perspective, and we spend most of it in his mind. My favorite scenes in this movie are when the Butcher is just casually walking around town while thinking the most messed up graphic thoughts in his head. I mean, that's realistic, right? Anyone walking in the streets could be thinking some vile stuff and no one would know. Later on, the Butcher tries to look for work and none of his friends can help him due to how much France sucks. This was really satisfying. The Butcher screws over so many people at this point, so seeing him helped by no one felt really good. As he gets more desperate for work, the Butcher's delusional mindset starts to get more and more extreme. In general, this film is a really good character study. It's really interesting to see this guy gaslight himself so much to the point where he starts forgetting info, constantly contradicting himself. By the end, his thoughts start all colliding with each other and it's really tense and effective. I also really like the ending. It's really messed up, and while I think the Butcher should have died, it's a good touch that this little evil dude keeps living on with a purpose. Yeah, this movie has a great, really hateable lead. I also feel like I gotta mention this, but this felt extremely similar to Taxi Driver. Our lead is basically a more messed up Travis Bickle, and a lot of his thoughts and general acts are extremely similar. Okay, so for issues, I think the directing and visuals here are solid, but I could not get into the strange editing here. Basically, every 5 minutes there's a whip sound and we just zoom in on random things. I thought it was kinda cool and unique when it started, but it just started getting really annoying. It was mostly just goofy, but towards the later half it got really old and had no real purpose being there. I guess the movie felt too flat, so they just added this here to make it more interesting, but I would prefer the movie without it. Also, having an actual graphic warning screen for the audience was really goofy. The scene is definitely messed up and gross, but having a literal warning screen is so corny. Anyways, I thought this was quite good. I couldn't get into the general style, but this was a well done character study. I'm gonna give I Stand Alone a solid 7 out of 10. Here's the ranking. Number 6, Kikaider reboot. Number 5, Godzilla vs. Biollante. Number 4, Mickey 17. Number 3, I Stand Alone. Number 2, The Princess Bride. And number 1, Sorry to Bother You. Thanks for watching. Give me movies if you want. And yeah, this is an epic outro.
What'll it be, fellas? Mustard or ketchup?